well. Thank you so much for joining me. There's a bit of a time delay, so some of you will just be coming into the room as I'm getting set up here. Thank you so much, guys, for joining this session. Again, we're just kind of getting set up here. Look, so thanks for joining this live stream. It's really, really, really nice to see you all. I'm going to just wait a few minutes just for people to come into the stream because we're just starting it at the top of the hour, which is normally, people kind of come in 2 or 3 minutes late, and I just want to make sure that we fill up the room as much as possible. So, if you could, guys, could you please just let me know that you can hear me okay? Because I can't hear myself in these live streams. I kind of have to rely on you guys to tell me if you can hear me okay. I see there's a good few people in here already. So if you can hear me loud and clear, that would be good to know. Let me know where you guys are coming from. We have customers all over the world. It's something that I love about this profession, the Cima community. It really is global, and it's something that I love seeing. It's like all the different locations coming up on the website, coming up on the just on our back end, you can see where people are arriving to, arriving from on the site. And it's really mixed, it's really all over the world, like places you wouldn't even think there's SEMA people there are. So something that I love about this. Okay, I can see there's some positive comments about being able to hear me, which is great. So I'm just going to talk for another 20 seconds or so, and we'll just let the room fill up a little bit more. I'm conscious people are kind of coming in. I suppose there's an email that's being released, and it probably is maybe people just clicking on it at the moment. So, look, I want to say thank you so much for turning up. I mean, this is your free time, and I really want to make this worth your while, okay? So what we're going to talk about in this session is a passing strategy, okay? This isn't a guide, like a kind of a few things you can do, a few tips here. This is a strategy, right? So it's not just like what to do week on week, which we will talk about. We're also going to talk about how the progression will feel as you go through the process over the coming weeks for the February 26 window. We're also going to talk about the reasons why you may have failed. Okay, so you might be someone who's coming in from the November 25 window. Perhaps today was not a good day. I'm really sorry if that's the case. I'm really sorry. It's really nasty. It's a horrible thing. But if you're here and you're watching this, if it's on demand or you're here live, it's so, so, so good that you're picking up where you left off, and you're saying, right, okay, I'm going to go for this in February. It's the right decision, okay, because you've probably done a ton of work. We have people all over the world that get between, normally 70 to 79, and we help them, a few pointers here and there can make a massive difference. We had a customer, I can actually just think back, we have normally around 100 per window, 150 sometimes, and I can remember one, 71 went to 101, in the span of a few weeks, right? And it was just a case of us coming in and saying, right, there's a few things you need to adjust with your answer. You need to do this, you need to do that. And it happened, okay? So that could be you. So look, enough talking. What are we going to look at in this session? Well, first, we're just going to go through a small introduction. You may not even know who I am, okay? So it's a bit rude, isn't it, right? I'm just talking to you. I haven't even said my name yet. So it would be important for me just to kind of give you a small, brief overview of who I am, what I'm all about, okay? Failure points as well. So we're going to talk about some potential reasons why you may have failed the exam if you were sitting in November, okay? If you're not someone who sat in November, don't worry, it's good information to know anyways, because you can try and avoid the things that happened in November for other people, okay? Now, just remember, I've been doing this for years, so these are the kind of top reasons why people tend to fail this exam. I cannot predict with certainty what happened in your case, but we're going to go through some scenarios and maybe one will apply to you. You'll probably know yourself, okay? The plan for success, okay? So plan for success is like a week-on-week plan that we're going to go through, okay? We're going to go through a week-on-week plan. Whether you're a customer of mine or not, we're going to talk about different resources that you may have access to, okay? So this is for everyone. It's not just for people who, purchase a course from Pro Accountancy. This is for everyone. I'm conscious of the fact that you may already be with a tuition provider. You may be on the FLP. You probably have seen me on the FLP. You may be on something else. I don't know, okay? It's for everyone. And then common questions. These are questions that get every single round. Some of you may have questions at the end anyways. That's totally fine. I'll answer them. I'll try and get through this session first and then answer all your questions at the end. And just to note, if you have to drop off, if you're watching live, it's totally fine because this is being recorded as we speak. So when we finish, this will be uploaded to YouTube. Just click the link that you used to get here, and it'll be here. Okay, so you'll be able to watch this back, and you'll be able to, pause it if there's something that you missed or something you didn't understand. So don't worry about that. Okay, so an introduction, just a very brief introduction. My name is Hugh Martin. Maybe you've heard of me, maybe you've not. Doesn't really matter. Okay, basically, I am someone who has been teaching Cima subjects for roughly 7 or 8 years at this stage. I'm Cima qualified myself. I was a former prize winner. All the exams that you've done, I've probably sat them myself. Okay, so I've gone through this process myself. I reach thousands globally each window. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm really heavy on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on all different types of social media. But if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll know I post all the time about how to get marks in the OCS, the MCS, and of course the SCS, which is my favorite. I've written a textbook on the SCS, so I know quite a lot about this subject. Okay, I wrote a whole textbook. It's 500 pages long. It took forever to write. Okay, I sell that textbook, by the way, if you want to buy it. And I also assist Cima with various different international projects. The biggest one is the CGMA Career Accelerator, which is in the United States. Now, I own Accountancy, which is an official Cima tuition provider. We're a content creator as well for the FLP. So if you've been on the FLP, you've probably seen me, okay? If you haven't seen me, well, you weren't looking hard enough. Okay, so that's basically my background. Now, of course, I have to flash an offer. Now, don't worry, it's not this isn't like a selling channel or anything like that. This is just a brief overview of the different products that Accountancy has on offer. Okay, so basically we sell a textbook, an assessment kit, and a course. We'll talk about all this type of stuff as we go through it, right? But if you visit my website, proaccountancy.com, if you email me, hugh@proaccountancy.com, or if you go to my WhatsApp, you will be able to get those resources, okay, to get those different products, okay? So, what's the purpose of this live stream? It's to show you the reasons why people fail the exam. That's super important. It's also to give you a week-to-week strategy that you can follow, and as well as to give you input on the main questions that we get every single round. So let's get stuck into the actual technical stuff, okay? So, some of you may have left the exam center for the November round, and you said to yourself, okay, I did pretty well. Or maybe you were like, I actually think I did okay, right? And then you got the results today and you're absolutely shocked, okay? That's not abnormal, okay? That's quite normal. There may be some reasons in here that you were not fully aware of. And it's really important that you think back to the exam and kind of be honest with yourself and say, did I do this? Because if you can address your problem, you can then probably pass the February window, okay? So these are really important to be aware of. And don't worry, so many people make these mistakes. You can actually make some of these mistakes and still pass. It's just, how much of this did you do? So the first is technical. This is a big one because lots of people think that the SCS is not a technical exam. I've seen people all over the internet say, you know what, the SCS is not technical. It's soft skills. It's not like a big technical exam. That's totally false. It's actually the case that the SCS assumes that you understand the technicals already. So it's kind of going beyond the technicals, but you still have to understand the syllabus. You still have to understand the hard stuff, business valuations, currency risk. You just can't escape it. If anyone says to you that the exam is, 100% based on world experience, I've seen that before. Tell them to look at variant 6 of the exam road of mine, and you'll see it's absolutely plastered in currency risk and economic risk, and it was one of the hardest variants ever. And you would have struggled with that if you had just assumed, okay, I don't need technical knowledge. Now, for each of these, we're going to talk about how we overcome them in just a few minutes, but I just want to give you an overview of them, okay? You may have failed. This is the biggest one because of alignment, okay? So your answer may not have been actually aligned with the question that was asked. The examiner says every single window, this is the biggest issue that people have. There's a question and they're not answering the question. Okay, there's many reasons why this happens, and we're going to go through probably the biggest piece of this lesson, this live stream, will be how to address this issue. Okay, so this may have happened to you. You may have left the exam center thinking, look, I wrote a big answer. A question on currency risk came up and I had a good answer. And you didn't get the marks. This may have been why, okay, because the marking grid may not have facilitated giving you the marks, okay, that you need for this particular question, okay? The next is detail. Now, some of you will know this. You left the exam center and you said, look, I just didn't write enough. You probably know why you didn't pass, okay? And again, if you're someone who's coming into this fresh, these are so important to know because if you avoid these, then obviously you're more likely to pass, okay? So bear these in mind. This is for everyone, right? So the detail, your answer may have lacked the detail and justification required. It may have been too short. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, how do I get better at that? Right? How do I address this? I'm stuck. Right? We have some techniques here that we can use, and there's some practical ones. I'm not talking about going reading a book for 70 hours, okay? This is like real stuff, okay? Allocation. So this might be another one. This one is probably the most ruthless one, okay? So your time may have been suboptimally allocated across the questions. This one affects high ranking students. This one affects people who actually put a lot of work into studying, a lot of energy into question practice. And what happens is they spend too much time on one subtask to the detriment of the other subtask. This is super common, especially with people who are perfectionists, okay? I am a victim of this myself, okay? We over allocate time towards one particular subtask. We're trying to squeeze the absolute most we can out of that first subtask. And what happens? The second one gets neglected and you lose easy marks, okay? This is what I'm talking about. Exam technique is so important, okay? You don't necessarily have to get everything 100% perfect to do really well in this exam. You have to be smart, and sometimes you just have to move on, okay? So that's an important one. The next is style. Your answer may have lacked application. It may have been too generic. This is a really common one. Generic answers, what does that mean? Okay, you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, I've heard this a million times. Like, what does this actually mean? It means that your answer looked like it was maybe copied and pasted out of a textbook. It wasn't specific enough to the particular scenario. Okay, so that's an important one. It's a super, super, super important part of getting a really high scoring answer. It needs to be very specific to the context, specific to the company, the scenario, everything that's going on. Okay, so that's an important one. The other one here, I mean, there isn't much I can really do to help you with the last one. You may have been sick. That can happen. You may have been distracted. Maybe something is going on in your personal life, a breakup, I don't know, a loss, something like that. Like that can happen, right? And there's just nothing that really we can do about that. You know what I mean? So that can be another reason. Maybe you just weren't prepared, right? Maybe you said, okay, I'm just going to chance doing the exam and it didn't work out. Okay, that can happen. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Okay, so technical knowledge. This is the first one. Let's address this, okay? Because I see it all the time on the internet. People saying, experts in the SCS, experts in the case study. The technical knowledge, not too important. Don't worry about it, right? No way. It is so important. It's the foundation. This is why people, kind of people who gloss over the technical knowledge don't do too well in the exam, because you do have to have some technical knowledge. I mean, even logically, think about it. Why would the last exam in the entire framework, you've done, exams like F2, F3, maybe you've done an exam like the OCS, you'll know how tough these exams are. Why would they say the last exam, oh, yeah, you don't need technical knowledge, it's just a general knowledge quiz? Right? It doesn't make any sense. So you guys know that, right? So this is the foundation of all CGMA case study exams. It just can't be neglected. But how do you get better at it? Well, the first thing is you have to absorb content from somewhere, a high quality source. Now, the official textbooks are good, but of course the official textbooks are written for the OT papers. So it can be a really long task going through them for the case studies, okay? So if you're someone, you're on a budget, like I totally get it, right? I've been on a budget before. What I used to do is I'd get the OT books and I would go through them all. It was like 1,500 pages. I mean, I've done that, right? For the OCS, the MCS, the SCS. I did that 10 years ago. Now, this is why I created my business, because we say, look, here's one book just for the SCS. Here's a course just for the SCS. It's not like recycled OT material. But you can go through the official textbooks and get that technical knowledge. You can, okay? Being honest about that. You can also go through the FLP competencies if you like. Again, it's a lot of material to go through. We cut down that process by a considerable amount, but it is possible, of course. Everyone will have their own source of high quality information. Now, as you go through that content, let's be realistic. It's probably going to feel like it's just not sticking, but you have to go through it at some point. You just have to at least get some understanding of it. How do you address this issue? People say to me all the time, the information isn't sticking, Hugh. I'm going through it. I like your material. It's great, but it's not sticking. What do I do? Well, the reason why is because you haven't really used it. Okay, so think about riding a bicycle. If I gave you a book on riding a bicycle, I mean, it might be actually quite useful. You can understand, different techniques. You can understand how a bicycle is made. You can understand, the way in which the process of cycling occurs. But until you actually get on the bike, I mean, that's really when it happens, okay? That's when you're going to start to learn. So you have to start using the information that you've picked up. And that's really when it's going to start to stick, okay? So a lot of people, what happens is they get kind of scared of questions. Particularly at the sort of beginning stage, they say, look, I'm not ready for questions. I just can't answer questions. I don't know the information. If you kind of go through the information, you read through it, get a basic understanding of it, and then do some questions, and you know what, your answers may be terrible in those questions. That's okay. You can work from there. You're using the information. It will then stick, okay? So you kind of find out, right, my understanding was not correct here. Then it will stick when you go back in and you have a look and you see, okay, I messed up. This is what I need to know. Like, this is the process of learning, okay? Don't wait till your theory knowledge is 100% perfect before you start practicing questions, okay? It's okay to have bad answers and practice questions. Like, that's what they're there for, okay? You don't need to be like 100% with practice questions. And when we had a guy on the course just there, so obviously the results came out today, you're probably thinking to yourself, did you sleep, Hugh? I did not sleep at all, okay? So I have been going for 30 odd hours, right? And so we had someone on the course who failed every single mock paper, every single assessment, and he got like 96 in the real exam, right? And that's common because he just said, look, I'm using these for practice. I'm using these to highlight where, possibly I have a kind of a lack of understanding in a certain area. That's okay, okay? Now, towards the middle and end of the study process, use a closed book approach. Don't be afraid of this, okay? It's really, really important. We have people who come back to us and say, look, every single mock paper, I had stuff open in front of me. I used Google, I used ChatGPT. It doesn't really add much value, okay? In the beginning stages, yes, it's fine. At the middle to later stages, no, it's not okay, okay? So just kind of be mindful of that, right? Reflection is really important. Be honest with your performance as you're going, right? What I'm saying here is if there's something that you don't understand, don't hope that it will not come up. I mean, it's like, especially if it's kind of like an important area like currency risk or maybe something like internal audit, don't cross your fingers hoping that it won't come up. It's a terrible strategy. If you know you're not good at something, address it, okay? And be honest with yourself. Say, look, I'm not that good with this. I need to spend time on this. I need to look at a different source. I need to ask questions. I need to, go somewhere for some help with this, okay? Don't just sort of hope that it won't come up. My mother years ago, right, we have like these state examinations in Ireland. She used to say to me, and I don't know how true this is, but she used to say, everything that you think that won't come up in the exam will. Right now, that scared me, right? But it was good advice, right? Because I made sure that everything that I wasn't too comfortable with, I was comfortable with before I got to the exam. I didn't hope, right? Because look, if it comes up, you've completely thrown away all those marks, and you knew in advance that that was going to be an issue. Okay, so you could have addressed it. Go back over the areas you're weak on. Don't be afraid to look at mistakes and to say, yeah, I messed up here. This wasn't such a good area for me, but I'm going to address it, right? That's the important bit, that you're going to go back in and learn that particular area that you didn't do too well on. Okay? So the next is alignment, right? So alignment is a super important one. I've spent a good bit of time on this one, okay? And we get this all the time. Mock papers, assessments, examiners' reports. I mean, we have, well, I think the last window we had about 500 mock papers being submitted to us, okay? And we saw this so many times, okay? So what we're talking about here is the answer not addressing the question. Super, super, super common. What do we do about this? Read the verb and the question carefully. Now, some of you are thinking, come on, really? I know that, right? But let's examine this a little bit closer, okay? Become familiar with the marking grids. Some of you may not be familiar with the marking grids. And this is important. We'll talk about this in a second. Summarize the question at the top of the answer box. Now, this doesn't require much detail, but basically, if you've sat the exam before, or the MCS or the OCS, you'll know that when you do the case study exams, there's the question on one page, and then you have to like click next, and then you get to an answer box. Okay? And what happens sometimes is when you're looking at the question box, you pick it up, and then when you get to the answer box, you forget what the question is. That's super common, right? So how do you address that? Just put like a summarized version of the question at the top of your answer box. Like, even if it's just something that you understand personally, it doesn't have to make sense to anyone else, just you. I would put it up at the top. That's what I used to do for the OCS, okay? So when I won a prize for the OCS, I had at the top just like 3 words that represented the question. So I didn't have to go flicking backwards and forwards and kind of checking and seeing, okay, do I understand the question? That's just a quick tip. It could honestly be very, very useful to you, okay? Read the question several times. Like, this is common sense, but honestly, I have seen this over and over. And our mock papers are designed to catch people out on this, okay? So avoid rushing as well. So, for example, if you read through a question, this is really common where people see the subject matter that's being tested and they go, right, okay, I'm going to write everything that I know about this. Big mistake, okay? So you may have a question that says, evaluate the currency risk involved in having an overseas subsidiary, okay? And what will happen is you'll have, let's say, 50% of answers talking about how to manage currency risk. 2 different questions, 2 completely different questions. And the way in which this exam is graded, one of your answers could get 0 based on the fact that you just read through it too quickly. You didn't really pick up on the actual question itself, okay? So be really careful. Read through it slowly. Be careful with the way in which you're planning out your answer, okay? So let's look at this a bit more closely, okay? The verbs. The first word that you see, okay? You're probably thinking to yourself, I get it, right? I've seen them loads of times. Hugh, I'm setting the paper. This is like the 3rd time. I understand. But just spend a little bit of time on this with me, okay? So evaluate. You've seen it. Evaluate this, evaluate that. It's all over the SCS, right? It's probably the top verb that you see at the SCS. What does it mean, okay? So evaluate means judge with depth, right? I've tried to keep these as simple as possible. I wrote this on my LinkedIn and everyone went crazy for it, okay? Because it's like really simple. Judge with depth, okay? So make a judgment. Some people say, they go, Hugh, does that mean I do arguments for and arguments against? My answer is you have to read the rest of the question to make that call, okay? So if you get a question that says evaluate the argument, then yes. If you get a question that says evaluate the currency risk, there's no argument for and against that. It's making a judgment. Is there a currency risk? There may not be. There may be in a certain context, okay? So again, it depends on the scenario. It depends on the question. Sometimes there aren't like simple answers to these questions. They're very complex, broad questions. Remember, this is pitched at someone who's supposed to be at a really senior level in an organization where things are not that clear cut, right? So this is the intention behind the exam. It's supposed to be really that you're like an executive, you're dealing with uncertain situations and that kind of stuff. That's why there isn't like a very clear cut answer for some of these questions. It's deliberate, okay? Recommend. You've seen that. What does that mean? Recommend means propose with justification. If you can justify your answer, you will get the top marks. Okay, so really important there. If you can justify your answer, when you see recommend, you will get the highest marks possible. It's always in the marking grid. With justification. Did the student justify? If they did, great. Give them loads of marks, okay? The next one, discuss. You don't see this as much these days. It means weigh up. So weigh it up. It's like a debate, right? Weigh it up with detail. Explain, clarify with application. Okay, so make it clear. Now, there is actually a hierarchy. I will not bore you, okay? But there is a hierarchy of these verbs. And the higher you go, the more critical thinking is required. The more complex problem solving is required. The lower you go, the less problem solving that you have to apply. Explain is considered to be a very low level verb. So is identify. You tend to see those more at the OCS level. Evaluate and recommend, those are high level verbs, okay? They require a lot of brain power basically to answer properly, okay? The next one here, interpret. You don't see this too much at the SCS. It may come into it, you don't know necessarily, but more so at the MCS. But interpret means extract contextual meaning. What this basically means is I have a set of data, interpret this, get some meaning out of this. You probably do this in your day-to-day job, okay, as an accountant or a finance professional. So let's look at this example. Here we're going to talk about the marking grids. You may not be familiar with this at all, but basically what happens is when your paper is being marked, a marker will be looking at a series of grids, and those grids basically dictate how they can allocate the marks, okay? And you actually have access to the past marking grids for the past papers. They're probably more important than the solutions, but most people just ignore them, okay? The reason why they're important is because they actually show you where you would have gotten marks. And if you get kind of clever at looking at them, you can reverse engineer some of the questions that you have and try to figure out, what would the marking grid be for my particular question, and then you can write your answer in alignment with that. Okay, so that seems a little bit complicated, but basically just bear with me here. So on the left hand side, we have a question. It's like a dummy question. Okay, so don't worry too much about it. We're not going to go through questions in this session. Like, it's just to kind of have something to work with. Okay, so the question says, recommend with reasons how the board can mitigate the effects of the situation on accumulators share price. Okay, and it's worth 50%. So this is what a demonstration version of this would look like. Okay, so if I'm the marker, I would have something that looks a little bit like this in front of me. Okay, so remember, this is worth 50%. So our general advice, you'll get a lot more of this in our course, but just to give you some kind of a taster, I suppose, our general advice is as follows. So you have one paragraph per 10% minus 1. Okay, so this is worth 50%. So 5 minus 1 is 4. So you would have 4 paragraphs in that case. And as well, split your answer evenly across the requirements. So if you have 2 requirements, you split your answer into 2. If you have 3 requirements, you split your answer into 3. In this case, we just had 1 requirement. It says recommend with reasons. Okay, so there's no 2 requirements. 2 requirements would be evaluate the strengths and weaknesses. Strengths, weaknesses, 2 requirements. In this case, recommend with reasons, 1 requirement. So we use the first rule there, 1 paragraph per 10% minus 1, it was worth 50%. So we have 4 paragraphs. Now, that advice is not just random advice. This took me years to get right. Because if we look at this, and this is actually an exam, basically an exam question that's been sort of changed, I suppose, for accumulator. You can see here we have a first recommendation, second recommendation, we have the third recommendation, and the fourth recommendation. So if we had those 4 paragraphs, well, we've optimized our structure here because we're being marked on 4 recommendations. And we got this from looking at past marking grids. We saw that if you have a question that says recommend with reasons, chances are the marking grids are going to look a little bit like this. So if we have 4 different recommendations, 4 different things, courses of action that we're putting forward with justification, you can see there, we'll get the top marks for those answers. Okay, so that's what it's all about. Look at the resources that have been given to you. Those marking grids, I mean, they're free, right? You just go to the end of the past papers and you'll see them. And of course, if you use our mocks, we send you marking grids for our mocks. Our mocks are not just, past questions that have been changed with the company name. We really spend a lot of time making the mocks purposefully difficult, purposely trying to, I suppose, get people, in the kind of common things that tend to trip people up. Okay, not out of spite, but just to, I suppose, so that you learn these things before you do the exam. Let's look at another example of this. So this one is a kind of a multi-requirement one. So evaluate the argument that currency risk arising from the new factory should be mitigated rather than accepted. And this is worth 40%. So when we see evaluate the argument, okay, in that case, as I said before, you would have arguments for and against. Evaluate the argument. Okay, we're weighing it up. We're judging this. Okay, so arguments for, arguments against. So there's 2 requirements here. So in this case, we're going to have 2 paragraphs arguments for, 2 paragraphs arguments against. And look at this. Evaluates the arguments for with detail, evaluates the arguments against with detail. That's the one that we should be aiming at, the one that gives us the most amount of marks, of course. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, how do I get detail, right? Yeah, of course, I'm going to have, if I had that, I would do well. I mean, I need someone to tell me that. We're going to get to that, but it's just important to look at these marking grids, go through the past papers, because you'll see trends. You see the exact same thing over and over and over again. The level 3s with detail, with justification, with reasoning. You see it all the time. So add that into your answer, okay? So on the detail part, okay, so on the detail part, how do you get the most out of your answer? Okay, so you need to have a reasonable amount of detail to score well. Okay, if you're going to score well in this exam, you have to have some content, right? It's not a case of just having some bullet points here and there. The examiners hate that. The markers hate that. This is really important. If you go into the past papers and look at the way in which the solutions have been written, they're written in a paragraph style. They're not written with bullet points. So try to adopt the same style, okay? That's what they're looking for. Years ago, there was an examiner's report that actually specifically said they don't want to see bullet points, okay? Now, generally speaking, this would mean that you have 4 to 6, 4 to 5 sentences per paragraph. Now, a sentence can be really short, a sentence can be really long, so this is just a general guideline, okay? Now, how do you get detail in your answer? this is the big question. Well, the first thing is you need to have a strong technical foundation before you do anything. So if you know nothing, it's very hard to get detail into your answer. Okay, you can just write a load of random stuff if you want, but I mean, if you actually want to have solid detail that's going to get you marks, you have to have a strong technical foundation first and foremost. Okay, it's really, really important. The next one is use our answer development technique. We have been using this for years. We use it in our own solutions. Let's have a look at it. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to have a subheading, okay, or a paragraph heading as we call it. Okay, it's just basically a label that you give the paragraph so that you can kind of identify what it is that you want to talk about, okay? So let's say, for example, you're talking about gearing, then you just put up the top gearing. Simple as that. It doesn't have to mean anything to anyone else other than to you, okay? Use the first sentence to explain your idea. Okay, taking on this debt is going to increase our gearing. Something as simple as that, okay? This is the main idea. The next sentence, add detail. Add some extra insight. Add some context. Add some preceding information, add some scenario information, okay? So add something to this, make it more substantive. Now, this is our technique here. Ask yourself after this, why is this important? Now, this is what people use in, I mean, some of you might be in manufacturing environments. If you've ever worked in quality circles, if you've ever worked in TQM, in a factory, in a car company in particular, you'll know the 5 whys. It's like a Japanese technique for kind of investigating problems. Ask yourself, why is this important? Why is this relevant? And that will draw more information out of the scenario, okay? So continuously use this prompt to generate more detail. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, look, that sounds nice. Let's see it in practice. And also, just something to bear in mind, ensure that you're using information from the scenario as much as you can, okay? That's going to address that application point. So let's say, for example, you have this question here, right? So firstly, evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of financing the new research facility by having the Westland entity raise a $W loan from Western City Bank. This is a question that we wrote, okay? Don't worry about the content of the question. This question is going to send alarm bells to everyone because it's on a tough topic. Don't worry too much about it. We're not going through the content. We're just going through the kind of the way in which it's structured, okay? So we can take a sigh of relief here, because when people say, people see things like interest rates and currency risk, they're like, please, I want to stay away from this. We'll cover it in the course, but not in this session, okay? So the first thing that we have is the heading. Simple. Weakness, volatility. So in this case, we're talking about a weakness, and the weakness is the volatility in this instance, okay? Again, don't worry about the technicals. So the first sentence is just explaining my idea. This is my main idea here, okay? So another weakness with the Westland entity raising the funds from Western City Bank is that it creates a degree of exposure to Westland's volatile interest movements. That's my main idea. It creates this exposure to volatility. That's a negative thing. Okay, I'm going to give more detail, okay? Like expand upon this. What's some additional insight that you can add to this? Well, as Westland is a developing country, it may suffer from volatile swings in interest rates. So I've given some extra information here. Where does that volatility come from? Why did I say that? Because it's a developing country. This tends to be the case, okay? As it says here as well, move in relation to other factors such as inflation and general political instability, okay? So this is something that kind of came from the scenario. You were given this information, okay? Now, here's where we apply our technique. Why is this relevant? It may suffer from volatile swings in interest rates. Who cares? Why is that important? Why would that matter for this business? Why does it matter in this circumstance? Well, here's a potential answer. If rates are variable, swings could result in significant rises in finance costs. Why is that important? Well, it has an impact on the cost structure of the facility. You could ask yourself, why is that important? Now, we've also asked ourselves, why is this important? And we've thought about it and we said, actually, it may not be that important or that relevant. And that's what the last point is. It says, however, increases in Western interest rates will likely depreciate the W dollar relative to the D dollar, which makes funding the entity cheaper over time if the funds come from accumulators group entities. So again, you're lacking context here. This won't make any sense to you. But basically what we're saying in this case was that actually it could have a positive effect that maybe negates some of the negatives. So actually it's maybe not as relevant as we thought, but we got that from asking ourselves, why is this important? Why is this relevant? You may have seen different structures online. People say, explain, add in pre-scene, but you get stuck because you're trying to kind of fit it into a different scenario, every time. This technique you can kind of use at any point. So do make use of it, okay? We use it for our own solutions. If you ever see our solutions online, we use it all the time, okay? The next one is time allocation. I just want to spend a little bit of time on this, okay? So total time for each section, remember there's 3 sections in the SCS, total time is 60 minutes per section, okay? We recommend that you deduct reading time of about 8 minutes. Now, everyone is different, right? Some people are going to go, Hugh, that doesn't take me 8 minutes. And some people are going to say, it takes me 10 minutes. Look, just be reasonable, okay? Between 6 and 10 minutes to read through the question and the scenario. These days, I find the scenarios are kind of getting a bit shorter. They used to be a little bit longer years ago. And, you know, I tend to see them kind of shrinking almost. So I would say 8 minutes is probably pitched at the right amount of time. But anyways, the remaining time is split based on the percentages that you're given, okay? So we all kind of know this. I would say if you don't know it, that's fine. We're going to go through how to put together a time plan. But I just want to be really clear here. And this was the point that I said about people, you know, not sticking to their time plan, misallocating, all that kind of stuff. Sticking to the plan is the hard part, especially if you are someone who is a perfectionist, especially if you're well prepared for the exam. Sticking to this is so hard. Because what are you trying to do? You're trying to get 100% in subtask A. And what's happening is 100% in subtask A is leading to 20% in subtask B. It would be better if you got 80% in subtask A and 80% in subtask B. You would probably be a top 10 prize winner if that was the case. Okay, so just be mindful of that. You don't have to get 100%. It takes forever to get that last few marks in the question, and it actually doesn't take that long to get the vast majority of the marks in a question. Okay, so it's about diminishing returns, Pareto's law. I'm sure you're sick of it. Okay, you've heard of it before. So example, let's have a look at the example of a time plan. So let's say you go into the exam and you have subtask A, it's worth 60%, subtask B, it's worth 40%. You'll probably know from doing the exam, or if you've not done the exam before, the configuration usually is 60, 40, 50, 50, 40, 60. We've not seen a 3 subtask section in about 5 years. Okay, so, you know, it doesn't mean that it can't come up, but it tends to be the case that it's just 2, okay? The time would be divided as follows, okay? So, A, 52 minutes multiplied by 60%. Well, why is it 52? So it's 60 less the 8 minutes of reading, therefore you have 31 minutes. Now, you could round it down, make life easy for yourself, okay? Now, 52 minutes multiplied by 40% is 21 minutes. So here we have our time plan. So our summary is reading is 8 minutes, subtask A is 31 minutes, subtask B is 21 minutes. That's our rough time. Okay, now if you keep on doing practice questions, you'll be able to do this without having to do the maths because it's the same setup every time. 60, 40, 40, 60, 50, 50. Okay, you'll be seeing in your sleep the more mock papers you do. I mean, it's the exact same every single like window. Okay, so I mean, you'll probably know how to allocate your time pretty well by the end of the next few weeks. Okay. The easy bit is putting together a plan. The hard bit's actually sticking to it, okay? So do stick to it. It's so important. Just think back to what I said. If you could get 80% in subtask A and 80% in subtask B, you'd probably be a global prize winner, and I would love that for you, okay? So just be smart with your time. Application, you've heard it a million times. People always say, apply your answer, apply your answer. You're probably thinking to yourself, look, I get it, like, you know, but like, how do I do that? What am I supposed to do? So the following pointers, you can use these, okay? So the first is a pre-scene analysis. You have to know the pre-scene. It's the basics, really, okay? So understand the pre-scene document. Go through it yourself. It's really important that you spend time on it. Go through it, check it, highlight, make notes, whatever you want to do. Remember, we have a free one on our YouTube, okay? There's no charge, there's no catch. It's the full thing. There's no, you know, watch 30 minutes and buy an entire course after. You don't have to do that. It is there on our channel. Everyone says it's amazing, so please check it out. It's there for you as a resource to go through and check out, okay? So if you're with another tuition provider, fine, no worries. Just check out that because it is really, really good, okay? So that's the first thing that you need to do. The next is have some idea of the industry. Now, this is one that's kind of controversial. People say, you know, how much of the industry do I really have to know? Look, you have to have some knowledge of the industry. You're not expected to be an expert. You're not expected to be, in this case, you know, an expert in EVs. But it does help to have some context, to have some idea of this industry so that your answers are they're realistic. Okay, so there's, you know, realistic for this particular industry. It is really important that you do that because if you have an answer that, you know, doesn't really make sense in the context, it's probably not going to do that well. So a good example of this is we had a question that was on currency risk, managing currency risk. And I saw that someone had said, well, one way in which we could manage currency risk is by purchasing a bank. Now, in theory, right, if you were to be really high level about it, you could say that that is technically a way in which you could manage currency risk, okay? But it doesn't make any sense for an EV business to do that. It's unheard of. So that's why it's important to understand the context of the industry. You don't have to spend loads of time on this. We have a booklet in the course, in the textbook, whatever, you just spend a little bit of time going through it. We have like a 10-minute industry review in the course if you want to check that out. I'm sure you have an equivalent in your course. It is important just to get up to speed with it. Now, the next one is, if you want to have really good application, you have to answer the question directly. This is the secret. If you answer the question directly, you will be by default applying your answer, because it tends to be the case for the SCS that the questions are very much scenario specific. And if you sat the paper, you'll know that sometimes questions come up and you're thinking to yourself, where in the syllabus does this come from? It's so specific to the scenario. It feels like you don't know where it came from, okay? But if you're answering that question directly, you will be by default applying. And something to bear in mind is that you may only use like 10% of the pre-scene in your answer. 90% of your application will probably be the scenario. So you can relax a little bit. Sometimes people are like, look, I'm trying to jam the pre-scene into their answer just to kind of show off a little bit. And if it doesn't work, then just don't do it, right? If it's not relevant, don't put it in there. You know what I mean? So just be kind of conscious of that. The pre-scene is there to give you kind of a general understanding of the business, a general understanding of the industry. You may be able to use some information from the pre-scene, of course, the share price, the ratios, the governance configuration, the risk report, super important, the setup of the business, the operations that it has, the currency risk it's exposed to, that type of thing. Yes, of course. But you don't necessarily have to use, pages and pages of information. Sometimes people, they try and, like I said, they try and jam in that information and it just doesn't really work. So what about everything else? Okay, so we said, look, there are some things that we can't really control too much. Look, what I would suggest, if you have maybe had some other problems associated with this exam, look, I get it. It's difficult. This exam is tough, and there's no easy way to prepare for this. It's not a straightforward exam, unfortunately. But it's not impossible. Look, so if you're serious about it, I really recommend that you book it early and then make a commitment to it. Like, not everyone's a big fan of this, and I don't really like having big pressure on me and things like that. But when I was doing this exam and the other case study exams, I tend to find that if I didn't book it, I would kind of be like, well, I study, well, I put it off. What if this comes up? This person's birthday's coming up. And I just wasn't serious about it. And I think when you create that commitment, it's almost like peer pressure for me anyways. If I said to work, look, I'm booking the exam, I felt like, okay, I'm being watched now, like I have to kind of study for it, right? So I think it's really important to do that. It's not everyone's cup of tea, right? But I do think it's a good idea just to book it, just to make sure that you have that commitment, you have that pressure. A little bit of pressure is okay. Too much pressure, no thanks. Now, you can pass this exam if you're focused on the goal of passing, you're practicing constantly, and you're addressing your weaknesses if you identify them, or if someone else has identified them for you. If, for example, one of the amazing pro accountancy markers says that you're not doing this, please do this, and you continue to make mistakes and you continue to ignore us, or you ignore our emails, there's not much we can really do. Sometimes you have to be just honest with yourself and say, look, I'm messing this up and I need help, right? That's okay. We can work with you then. We do have people that buy courses from us, and unfortunately they just don't communicate with us and we can't help them as a result. And I feel bad about that, right? So I want to help you. I'm here to help you, right? And of course, I'm sure your tuition provider, if you're not with us, is probably the same. So let's look at the plan for success. I'm sure this is why you're here, okay? So what should we be doing over the coming days and weeks? Like, how do we prepare for this exam? I think with the case study exams, it's like so difficult to know. What are you supposed to do? Like, what do you want me to do, right? The OT exams, yeah, it's straightforward. Like, you have multiple choice, that certain things are going to come up, whatever. The case study exams is a bit weird, okay? So you have to kind of plan a little bit differently. So this is how I would do it, starting from this week, okay? We don't have all the days. That's why I ran this session today, just to make sure that you have, something at the weekend that you can work with. But I'm conscious of the fact that not everyone's going to be seeing this live. Some people are going to see this on demand. So anyway, this week, what do we do? Okay, keep it simple. The first thing you should be doing is revising intensely. This is an intense plan. There's not that much time. Just being real about it, being serious about it. You do need to study for this quite intensely, okay? The exam basics. You have to understand the exam basics, right? If you're someone that's coming into this fresh, Maybe you're someone who has exemptions all the way up to the SCS. We have tons of students like that. That's fine. If that's the case, you can still pass, of course, but you need to understand the basics. If you're someone who, did the MCS, you may still not really understand the nature of the exam. If I'm talking about things like marking grids and, the verbs and the percentages, and this is like, new information to you, you do need to spend a bit of time just understanding the basics of the exam. That's okay if that's the case. You found that out today and that's valuable. You got something out of this session, okay? So don't be embarrassed by that. If I was talking about things you didn't understand, that's okay. You can address that, okay? The next thing, pre-scene, right? So simple. Just read through the pre-scene. Read through it several times. Look at our pre-scene analysis. I mean, it's there for free. It's an hour long. It's a good use of your time. Honestly, check it out, okay? Question practice. You're probably thinking to yourself, what? Question practice this early? Yes, okay. Light question practice. You may, if you're someone who is really like not prepared at all, look at a question, think about how you would answer it, maybe a past paper, possibly it's something else, and just check and see, okay, how was that answered? Like, what way would I have answered that had that question come up for me for this particular pre-scene? The past papers are quite useful for this because you can kind of flash to them fairly quickly and see, okay, right, that question, like, how would that have maybe applied to accumulator? And some of them won't, okay? Some of them are very much specific to that window. Don't go through past pre-scenes. Don't bother at all. Please don't do that. Waste of time. But just go through the questions. We have a database that you can use. If you go on my LinkedIn, you'll see it. Of all the past questions, just go through them and see, okay, how would I have approached that? What does the solution look like? What did the grids look like? Or you could do something like an assessment set. So we have what they call assessment sets. It's like a 2/3 of a mock paper, and the questions are pretty straightforward. It's untimed. The idea is that you're just getting used to putting together an answer. You're breaking the inertia. You're saying to yourself, right, okay, I'm going to practice. I don't mind if my answer is not that good. I'm just going to make a start. Again, what do people say to me over and over? The knowledge is not sticking. Okay, so you need to address that by practicing. Okay, so many of you will actually have a lot of theory from the last round if you went through the last round, so you don't need to spend loads of time on the theory, but you do need to cover it. Okay, past papers, as I said, is a great resource. It's free. Okay, so it's a resource that suits everyone, right? So the next week, what do you do? Well, this is where we really get stuck into the actual theory itself. You said technical knowledge is important, and yes, it is. Okay, so you have to go through enterprise strategy. It's a big piece of the SCS, right? So with our course, that's Unit C in the textbook. It's Unit C in the videos that we have. You can easily get through it in a week. Easily, okay? Because it's SCS specific. Now, that doesn't mean there's like 2 hours, but I mean, you can easily go through it, right? The next then, you increase the question practice a little bit more, okay? Try and find questions that are enterprise strategy related. Chase up what you've learned at the end of the week by going through some questions. Again, assessment sets, past papers. It depends who you're with in terms of your tuition provider. Maybe you're with no one, okay? And in that case, consider our product here. But if you are with, a tuition provider, they have some stuff there for you. Try and kind of fit this into your plan. Light question practice. Now, week 3, we're stepping it up a little bit more. So what happens is the pace picks up here, okay? So it gets a little bit more intense in terms of going through risk management. It's not massive. You can easily get through it in a week, but your question practice has to be increased in terms of its intensity. So you have to do a little bit more. Make it a little bit more difficult for yourself. Don't have an open book, perhaps. If you were just doing reviews of questions, actually start writing an answer now. And again, be real with yourself. You're not going to be able to go into the exam and just magically write a big answer without actually doing this beforehand. It's like going to a driving test and having never been in a car, but you read a book on a car. You just wouldn't do it. So why would you do it with this? Okay. So assessment sets, we have assessment sets. They kind of increment in difficulty. So you would be doing assessment set 2 at this stage, and it's more difficult. You get a little bit better at kind of addressing technical stuff, and that's the purpose of it. Okay, mock papers as well. So you may be at a point where you're sitting mock papers. Okay, that could be something that you may be required to do as part of your course. And we would have mock papers at this stage as well. So I'm just kind of bearing in mind different people have different deadlines, and you'll have to sort of fit those around. You may have a tuition provider that says you have to do it on a certain day. We have ours week by week. So I'm kind of factoring in all those different sources that you may have for increased intensity question practice, okay? And again, past papers might be a resource for you. If you don't have the money for any questions whatsoever, of course, past papers are always there for you. Now, week four. So again, it gets a little bit more intense again. So you're looking here at finance strategy. This is like everyone's most hated subject, unless you like work as a treasurer. I think everyone hates this. I would say that the paper is not super finance strategy focused, but you do have to know it because currency risk comes up loads. I mean, it's super common, right? You just can't escape it. I really mean that, okay? Other parts of finance strategy do come up as well, like raising debt, raising equity. People tend to be okay with that. Things like consideration for acquisitions. Sometimes you have the softer side of finance strategy come up as well. So you may have things around IOR, not too difficult if I'm being honest. So it's not too bad, okay? Even though it can be daunting, it's not too bad, right? We do try to make it as easy as possible. It is a tough subject. If you've ever sat F3, it's a nightmare, but for the SCS, it's a little bit more straightforward. Okay, so the question practice gets more difficult. Here, you're definitely doing mocks. Mock papers under time conditions. You're doing question packs under timed exam standard conditions. You need to get good at writing to time. It does not get better by itself. Okay, not by magic. Okay, you have to practice this. If it's something that you've had problems with in the November round, you just have to address it, right? So do your questions, if you're doing them like by yourself in Word or something like that, do them to time. And it's actually a good idea because it restricts the scope of your study session. You're not just spending hours writing an answer that's going nowhere. You're saying to yourself, right, I'm going to spend an hour, 60 minutes on this, and that's it. And I'm going to see what I got out of it, and then I'm going to review. Okay. And it's a great way if you've like kids, right? And you need to like plan your time super preciously because you're thinking to yourself, look, I don't have hours and hours, right? 60 minutes is pretty good. You can get a lot done in 60 minutes. Past papers again, if you're on a budget and you don't have mocks, you don't have assessment sets. So I'm being realistic here. Then past papers may be a source for you. But otherwise, we'd be getting away from past papers at this stage. Now, this week 5, super intense. Question practice, right? So question packs, time conditions, exam conditions, mocks, anything you have, past papers. You should be just practicing. And where you get things wrong or information incorrect, you need to go back and address that. Okay, so that's why having that source of theory, that source of truth as they call it, is really important. If there's an area, for example, value drivers, it came up in the exam and you were like, what is a value driver? I've never seen that before. That's fantastic. That's a huge insight. That saved you from losing marks in the real paper. So don't be embarrassed by that. Go back and check and see. Be curious, like, how could I have approached this better? Right? Don't be afraid of it. Everything here you are able to cover, right? All of you. I mean, it definitely 100%, right? Cover the weak theory areas. Don't be afraid of them. We have so many people doing our courses, and I can see that they're sort of hoping, please, currency risk don't come up. Please, internal audit don't come up. Please, ecosystems, I never want to see you on the exam paper. And then it comes up. What do you do? Right? I mean, if you knew it was a problem, address it, there's a ton of stuff on our site. There's a ton of stuff in the book as well on those topics. Okay, so week 6 is like the exam week. I mean, what are you supposed to do this week? I would recommend that you go through any feedback that you got from your mocks, your assessments, from, question practice, if you got it graded or if you got it marked. Our course has marked feedback. You get marking grids, everything. And that's super important because the markers have been doing this day in, day out. They know themselves what is a good answer, what is a bad answer, and all of them are Cima qualified as well, which is important. So cover any remaining questions that you have, review your feedback, study weak areas, and as well, this is underrated, make exam arrangements. So don't be caught off guard. We have people, they turn up to exam centers, they forget their ID. That's a nightmare situation. Like, don't let that be you, okay? Make sure that you have everything planned. If you're doing it from home, have the setup done. Like, it's almost patronizing saying it, but I cannot tell you. I myself have messed up the location for the exam center, and it's just really unpleasant. And it really is, right? So I had an exam center. It was like in a different county. I thought it was in a certain area. It wasn't. I was driving around in a taxi, not having a clue where it was, and I just could have done without that. Okay, so just be really careful. Okay, manage that. Really straightforward stuff. Okay, so progression. This is a little bit lighter. Okay, so this is what really you're going to go through over the next few weeks. Okay, so a lot of people sort of, when they go through this process of studying for the paper, they're thinking to themselves, is this normal? Like, what is the expectation? Like, is what I'm feeling here like normal? Is this like the way I should be or what? Like, so this is what I would suggest the progression looks like. Okay, so you start off at this level. It's called the cycle of learning. Okay, so at the very beginning, don't be insulted, right? it's unconsciously incompetent. That's what it's called, okay? So unconsciously incompetent means that you don't know what you don't know, okay? And that's a pretty tough place to be. This may be you right now. Okay, so you may be coming into the SCS. Maybe you've never done a case study exam before. Maybe you just failed and you're thinking to yourself, like I'm at a loss. Like I don't know what to do. I thought I did well in the paper. I'm lost. Like what am I supposed to do? That's the initial week or two, okay? So things seem a bit confusing. It's like a little bit daunting. The retention of information, if you're starting like a new course, it may be like minimal. You may be thinking to yourself, I'm not learning anything, but I'm going through this stuff, but I'm not, I'm not picking it up. You're figuring things out, okay? That's normal. Just don't stay there for too long. What'll happen is over time is you become more aware of what you don't know. And that's important. Okay, this is a more empowering situation to be in. So you kind of know, okay, and maybe this is you at the end of the session. You go, right, okay, maybe I messed up the detail side of things. Maybe I didn't really answer the question that I was given and I need to work on that. Okay, that's a pretty powerful position to be in because now you can allocate time towards that. Okay, so that's important. And you start to gain a little bit more of a broad understanding as you go through the process. You pick up bits of information. Maybe you're not 100% aware that you are, but you are picking up bits and your retention is getting better. You're practicing, you're messing up, you're fixing it. Okay, it's getting better. Now, this is where you want to be. This is the passing area, the middle weeks. Okay, if you're doing everything correctly, you know what you should know, ideally. You understand the nature of the exam as much as possible. Your answers are good. They're not perfect, they're good. Okay, you use the information you've retained. You're not an expert. It probably takes you a lot of effort to write your answers. You're probably exhausted at the end of a mock paper. This is probably where you'll pass the exam. The next stage is even further than this. This is like a prize winner. You're unconsciously proficient, okay? This basically means that you understand the context of the exam and it does not feel draining doing questions. It feels like they flow naturally. Some people, like I know there may be a portion of you saying, Hugh, why is this relevant? I just want to pass the exam. Being honest with you, it's important to cater to everyone because there will be people at this level who are looking for a prize. Trust me, I get DMs all the time. People, I want to win a prize. Okay, that's great. I'll help you with that. No problem. But, and we had the top five in the August window. Two of them were our students, right? So, we have had a track record with this. But a lot of people just want to pass the exam. If you get to this level, it's likely you'll win a prize. Okay? So that hopefully addresses the people who are looking for a prize. So your progression journey, what's going to help? What's actually going to help? These are practical things, right? Having professional input and advice. Having advice from someone who's been there or knows what they're talking about. I mean, that's going to help, right? And that's common sense. Getting feedback on your answers throughout from someone who understands how to get marks, how the exam is designed, what this is all about. Scheduling your study, or at least having a rough idea as to when you'll study so that life doesn't get in the way. So common, like things pop up. It's a nightmare studying for these exams, but you have to sort of be unbalanced for just a small bit of time and then your life goes back to normal. And hopefully when you pass the exam, you never sit an exam again, or you live your life happily and you do CPD where you don't have like a big massive ramp up period. There's no big pressure. Just being real about it. I mean, who really wants to sit an exam? Like no one is like queuing up to do these, right? So you may have to be unbalanced for a small bit of time. Let's just be realistic about it, right? If that's the case, we'll do it for a few weeks and then live our lives free. If we do it right the first time, we do it right this time, we can go off into the distance merrily, okay? The next one, trying questions without being fully prepared. It's okay to try questions without being fully prepared. Don't wait to be an expert. We have so many people reach out to me. They say, look, I'm practicing. I'm making sure everything's perfect. Look, you'll be waiting forever, right? Because I'm not perfect with this stuff. I've been teaching this for like 8 years. So there's still things that I find out every now and again. You won't be 100% perfect, right? You just have to kind of give it a go. You have to get stuck in there. Think about what I said with the bike. I mean, it's like learning to swim as well. I mean, you can kind of sit there and read a book for ages and yeah, it's good. Like, I mean, it helps, right? And as you actually go in and you start swimming, I mean, of course, you read books, you look at videos, you get better, right? But you have to kind of get in the swimming pool. You have to get in there eventually, right? Otherwise, you're just going to be going into the exam, going into like your, using the analogy, going into a swimming exam and saying, look, I just haven't a clue how to swim, right? So, be kind of mindful of that. What's it going to be hindered by? Unchallenged advice on the input. This one's a nightmare because anyone can go on LinkedIn, anyone can go on Facebook and say, this is how you pass the exam. And very few people challenge this. They don't challenge the information that's been given to them. I always say to people, look, if I said something, please ask me why I said it. I always try to make sure that there's a backup. I'm not saying that I'm amazing, I'm perfect, but I always try to make sure that like the information I'm giving you is backed up somewhere. There's something behind it. It would be unethical otherwise. Okay? So make sure if you're reading stuff online, I see it all the time. People say, look, the Ansoff matrix, the SWOT analysis, and then it never comes up in the exam. Have a recommendation at the end of your answer. Have an introduction. You get secret marks for it. I've yet to see them, right? So like, I mean, just be really careful with the information that you're getting. I see it all the time. Terrible information, never challenged. And we have to be really careful about that. Talk to a professional. If you have a tutor, they should be approachable, okay? Getting AI to mark your papers, this is controversial, okay? Look, obviously I run a tuition provider, but there's a reason why we don't use AI to mark our papers. It would be a lot cheaper, right? The reason why is because if you use AI, yes, AI can mark papers. You can put in stuff and you can get it marked by ChatGPT. Of course you can, right? But your AI model needs to have a marking scheme for that marking to be valid. ChatGPT by default does not have a predefined marking scheme for the mock papers that you're sitting. Okay, so just be really careful. You know what I mean? Be really, really careful with that, because if it doesn't have a marking scheme, what's it supposed to mark based on? It's just going to give you information that it has scraped from the internet. And that then could actually give you some really misleading stuff. I mean, we've had people, kind of reach out to us and say, look, this is what ChatGPT said about my answer. And the answer was just incorrect. Obviously, AI hallucinates, all that kind of stuff. But it could just actually set you up for a total nightmare, because it's through no fault of its own. It has no context for what you're doing. Cima is only a tiny, 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 tiny thing in the world of ChatGPT. So how does it know how to mark? Where is the reference for the marking? Having a chance at mentality. This is like a bad way to approach it, right? I'll just see how I get on. Hopefully it'll be okay. You have a good few weeks. Make it happen. Don't just kind of hope and say, oh look, I hope it'll be all right. I'll just wing it. There's no way that's a good approach. There are exams like that you can turn up for, and you can kind of just say, look, maybe I'll just use some of my work experience. Of course, there are exams like that out there. This isn't really one of them. You do have to prepare for it. Okay, you do, and I mean that. Okay, it's really, if I could tell you, look, just give it a go and see what happens, it'd be easy for me, right? I mean, I'd have a lot more customers, right? So, trust me, I wish it was true. Never practicing to exam standards. This is really common. People having open books during mocks. Look, there's no point. You're only kind of cheating yourself. You purchase the mock, you purchase the feedback, and all you're doing is just cheating yourself. We have people using AI for their mocks every now and again. There's just no value in it. Don't bother. It's a waste of money, right? And just not doing them to exam standards. There's no point. If you're doing mock papers, do them properly. Even if you get a terrible result, even if it's not what you wanted, you'll learn something out of it. I mean, we have people who get 30% in their mocks and they pass the exam. We've had it loads of times. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a learning opportunity, okay? Some common questions, and we'll close this out, okay? So should I sit the February 26 window? That's your choice. I'm not here to convince you as to whether you should sit the exam. Of course, as a business, I'd love you to sit the exam. I'd love you to buy our products and to sit the exam and do it with us. Of course, I'd love that. But the reality is you need to consider your time, your energy, the cost, and your motivation. If you're really deflated today, sleep on it, see what you think. But you have to take some action, because the time is ticking. Okay, so if you think you want to sit this exam, you really have to be geared up for it, right? Because it's quite an intense period of time. I will be here for you. I have a team as well. They're really geared towards your success. We have 6 markers. We have a director of operations. Everyone here wants you to succeed. I'm sure if you're with another tuition provider, they are the same as well, okay? But you have to consider time, energy, cost, motivation. It's super important that you make a decision that's right for you, okay? This all sounds great. Look, I'm really overwhelmed. Everything you're telling me now, I'm just overwhelmed. I want to cry. Okay, maybe that's some of you right now. Okay, and I'm sorry if that's the case, right? I mean, it's totally normal, right? If that is the case, it's totally normal. And don't worry, right? You're not abnormal. This is really common. Maybe you kind of think to yourself, I'm after failing the exam and this guy's screaming and shouting. What's this all about? When you're overwhelmed, the best thing to do, I find, is to create a plan. Okay, so create a plan. and think to yourself, if I was to approach this exam, how would I go about it? Be logical. Try to turn off the emotional side and think about, okay, if I was to do this, if I was to kind of take some of this advice on board, like how would I structure this? Would I study on Wednesday? How much time do I have in the second week? Do I have month end? Like I have to be realistic. Like I probably have to stay a little bit late in the office. I have budgets, whatever. Make a plan and just be calm about it. If the plan doesn't work, then don't do it. Okay? If it does work, then do it, right? It might be an ambitious plan. That's cool. I mean, that's a good idea. I think that's a great idea, actually, right? It might be something that really stretches you. But if it's just not realistic, do it in May. No big deal, okay? That probably makes you feel better, okay? So, can I get my script from Cima for the November 25 round? No. We get this question all the time, and I know it's really hard. Like, I mean, I wish the answer was yes, okay? But don't think too much about what happened. Try to pick up on the lessons. Don't try and challenge the result. I mean, unless something happened, like for example, the exam center, the lights turned off and all that kind of stuff, that can happen. Like, do challenge that, whatever. But like the actual result itself, look, CIMA probably gone through your paper rigorously. And ones that are on the margin, like if you were 78, 79, trust me, we get loads of those. They would have reviewed them again a second time just to make sure that that margin result was accurate. Okay, so they're not likely to turn around and say, actually, we're recorrected and all that. You kind of have to move on. Okay, and time is of the essence. Okay, so this is a hard one. I wish this wasn't the case, but just being real with you on this one. Okay, should I have used models more in my answer? I was told to do this. No. Okay, so this is a big mistake. Models are useful, but you don't need to have models in your answer all the time. Okay, so people tend to learn models because they kind of create easy frameworks for your answer, and it's easy to kind of think about answers in terms of models. Like, how do I split my answer up? Okay, we'll give the five forces. It's not really like that with the SCS. You're expected to apply the models, to take the learnings from the models, take the understanding from the models, and use them in your answer. Don't just take the model and say, yeah, Porter's five forces works here. This is a model. This is one of the aspects of it, and that's it. And I see that all the time. Again, online, people say, learn the models, learn the models. Like, you're expected to go beyond that. If you're specifically asked for a model, for example, if you're specifically asked, evaluate the suitability, acceptability, and feasibility of this strategy, then do that, of course. So just kind of bear that in mind. The next one, what difference can I really make in 6 weeks realistically? Okay, generally speaking, 5 to 15 marks. I've seen both. Of course, I've seen, both sides that I've seen people get less as well. But generally speaking, if you're really putting a lot into it, you can get between 5 to 15. 15 is tough, but you can. Okay, it depends on your timetable though, commitment, again, willingness. Depends on other stuff as well, possibly budget too. Maybe you're not able to actually afford to resit the exam. That's many people. Let's just be honest about that. So a lot of factors come into it. Look, in terms of products that we have, I'm not going to go on. This isn't like QVC. This isn't a shopping channel. But of course, I'm here to plug my products. Why? Because I stand over them. I mean, we have people raving about them online. We have really strong Trustpilot reviews. I stand behind my products. I am here in front of you live. There's nowhere to hide. This is my face. This is my business. This is what I do. I put up a post, I think on the 1st of January, I said, this is my life. I've invested everything in this business, right? So there's nowhere to hide, right? So of course I'm going to plug my products, but this is the best product we have. It's the Ultimate SCS course. Maybe you've heard of it. It has all the videos that you need for the SCS, highly testable topics across core activities A, B, C, D, and E, expert pre-scene analysis, access to our digital textbook. It's available on the website only. You can't download it. We have to protect the IP. 2 assessment sets with feedback. They're 2 out of 3 parts of a mock paper. They don't have grades, they don't have timing, but you do get feedback there to kind of get you started. And then you have 3 mock papers, expertly written. The difficulty has been set to progress each week. Okay, so they have been purposely written in such a way. Payment plans, if you go on the website, you have to make an account to access the payment plans, but you can do like half today, half in 30 days time. Our pass assurance policy is that if you score between 70 and 79 in the real exam, we will enroll you once for free, okay, into the next course. You have to send us a screenshot though of your score. Direct contact. So we have like a group. The group is massive at this stage, but we have a director of operations who is overseeing it, who is a Cima qualified expert in progression and is a marker for us, and is someone I just have so much faith in, as someone who is really invested in your success. And of course, I'm on there too, right? But I'm all over the place. So sometimes you see me message really late at night or really early in the morning. But of course, I do get back. Okay. So this is the end of the session. Now, that's not the end. Of course, I'm going to answer your questions. I know some of you have been asking questions throughout, and I see some familiar names, and I'm so happy to see. I wonder if you're still here, my friend from Ukraine. I see you have put a note in here. I didn't know you were watching live. If you're still here, thank you so much for joining. A good friend of mine and a good friend of Pro Accountancy. I won't mention your name in case you don't want to be identified, but thank you so much for joining. It meant a lot that you joined this session. I asked at the beginning, where are you guys from? And I see here, I have like the questions on my phone, right? I'm from UK. Awesome. One of your SCS students. Amazing. Thank you so much for purchasing from me, supporting my business. I absolutely love it. All my customers and even people that follow me don't buy anything from me. I absolutely cannot thank you enough, because I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing this without you. Okay. So thank you so much for your support. UK. Awesome. South Africa. Wow. Okay. We have a lot of people from South Africa. We actually took on someone quite recently in Johannesburg, an amazing country, and so many Cima students in South Africa. And I hope we get a chance, spoiler alert, to go to Johannesburg and deliver a course in person for you at a very South African friendly rate. We will make that happen this year. I am putting that out there. Hopefully no one clips that and puts it up on the internet saying, hey, you said this would happen and it didn't happen. We're going to make it happen. We will be coming to South Africa to deliver in person. Of course, Johannesburg is the main market, so we'll probably be there. Okay. Watching from Botswana. Okay, of course, my friends from Botswana. We have tons of customers from Botswana, and thank you so much. You're welcome. Zambia, yes, we have loads of people from Zambia as well, an amazing country and very nice people, very smart people. We have South Africa, Scotland, one of my favourite places. I absolutely love Edinburgh, it's fantastic. One of the best holidays I ever had there. I got 78, that's so disappointing. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of going through these. Look, 78, 79, 77, we see it all the time. It's really heartbreaking, but guess what? Think about it like this, right? So you maybe think to yourself, look, I was 2 marks away from doing it. You're only 2 marks away. That's a better way to think about it. You're only 2 marks. If you could just do a little bit more, a few tweaks, you'll get there, right? So you're not a million miles off. If you got like 50, you'd be thinking to yourself, okay, I need to like really reconfigure what I'm doing. But you're so close. You're almost there. This is the paper to sit, the repeat window. If you got like 77, 78, like it's wise to just take another chance. Do it again. Why not? Yeah, it's the same syllabus as November. It is. The syllabus changes in May, guys. Yeah, it changes in May. It's not too significant. Don't worry too much, but we will have something there for you. If you're sitting in May, we will have our, course reconfigured. UK, Johannesburg. There's so many people from Johannesburg. It's amazing. Please clarify on past papers. We shouldn't dwell on them too much. Look, go through them, check them out, light touch on the past papers. Don't get obsessed with them, because sometimes there are questions that come up that are very specific to those particular pre-scenes. Don't look at the past paper pre-scenes. What I would recommend is look at the marking grids. Look at the questions that are in the marking grids. How were they divided out? If you kind of look at a question and go, I don't have a clue, look at the solution that Cima had for that. That's an important one. There are some questions that are asked that do come up sometimes, again, in the paper. It's not the most repetitive paper. The OCS is quite repetitive, but not the SCS. So Globetrotter, is the question bank in unit group order, i.e. cyber risk questions, all SAP questions grouped? Sort of. So in the question pack, the questions are not grouped, but the way in which they're categorized is you have at the very beginning of the question pack in the textbook, you'll have like a summary, and it shows the assessment outcome and the core activity. Okay, so that's where you can find it in the syllabus. The reason why we don't group them like that is because the questions are written to exam standard, and you can't have 2 questions from the same area in the same scenario when you're writing to exam standard. It has to be varied according to certain ratios, and we have written to that standard to replicate the exam as much as possible. That's something that it takes a lot of time to do. So hopefully that answers your question. Globetrotter 7076. Is there examiner's reports for the November exam? No, not yet. I think there will be in a few days. There's an interim report. There's one that's released that's sort of like it's it's like a stopgap, you know what I mean? It's like a quick analysis of what happened. I will be breaking that, I suppose, on LinkedIn, okay? So I'll take whatever's important because they're quite boring. I'll take what's important and I'll stick it up on LinkedIn for you guys. Can you go through a sample question and work through how you would answer, please? At the moment, I can't because I'm kind of restricted on time. But what I would say is if you go through my YouTube that you're on and you go into the crash course, you'll actually see there's 5 questions. There's one for every single core activity that we go through. So check out my channel and check out the crash course JB10. Would be a good idea to do that. HB, definitely a good product and quick feedback. Wow, thank you so much. I think I know who that is, and thank you very much for saying that. I appreciate it. How many hours would you recommend one commits to at least if they did not write November case study, say they followed your weekly plan? About 10 hours a week is a good target, but remember, like if you're doing like mock papers, that's 3 hours just doing the mock paper alone. So it might seem a bit daunting, but 10 hours is a good target. I used to do Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for studying. I would take 2 days off during the week. You'll have to make it work for your schedule. I had an awful job. I was like working like serious hours, month end, quarter end, managing people. It was nasty, you know what I mean? So you have to kind of work it out. Like, is it year end? Is it audit? You know, work it out. What makes sense for you? But KEA, I hope that answers your question. Guys, keep the questions coming because why not use me? I'm here, right? I mean, if you're never gonna buy anything from us, I don't care. You know, I'm here to answer your questions. I love seeing your questions. It gives me insight into the market, so I really appreciate it. How many hours do we need to study a day? Well, I would say do it by week, Colin. I would do it by week because as in 10 hours per week because not everyone's going to have the same amount of time. Like some people like are full-time studying, some people are like, you know, working crazy hours, some people have like kids, they're working part-time, they have to kind of make it work in between different hours. So I would say like aim for 10 hours a week. It's probably a good one. In the exam, can we compare the business with real life businesses? Yeah, you know what? Yes, this is a really good question. Should we use real world industry information? Look, you can do it if you want, but it's not really going to achieve many marks. So I would do it very lightly if it's very relevant. Okay. Better to use the information from the pre-scene. Okay. So that's my top tip, right? The industry, the reason why we go through the industry is not to pick up facts that you can insert into your answer. You're not really going to get any marks for that. I mean, I used to do that when I was studying. I was like, look, I'm going to learn off a lot of stuff, and the markers are going to be so impressed. Like, I picked up all this information, no one had it. But it doesn't really work like that. Like, it's better to kind of use information from the scenario, use information from the pre-scene. Really, the reason why you go through the industry is just to kind of make sure that your answer makes sense within that context. So, for example, years ago, there was an MCS on a service business. And if you went into the paper and started talking about like IS2 and inventories and stuff, I mean, your answer is for the birds, right? It's just like, doesn't make any sense. It's a service business. There is no inventory really. So it's just the basics. Like, try to make sure that your answer is sensible within the industry. Do you know what I mean? Guys, keep the questions coming. So, is the question bank in unit group board? Yeah, I answered that question there. Yeah. Beagle. So, I believe this is a reference to the dog, the beagle. I'm a big dog person, just so you know. You might see on my LinkedIn, I have a dog myself, and I'm a huge dog fan. I have a golden retriever myself, and sometimes you can hear him in the recordings. He's not loud, but you can hear him snoring. So he's a feature of my business, right? Okay, so in your database, you have yet to update the topic column. Are you planning to update this anytime soon? Yes, thank you for pointing that out. That's a really good point. Yes, we are planning to do that. It's a really tough task, I'll be honest with you. It takes a lot of work, and we will be doing that, yes. Answer your question. It'll probably take about a week or two, though. Okay, so we have someone doing that for us. It's a really tough task. It's like 500 questions, right? Okay, so great session as always. Thank you so much to me, 88. I know who that is, and you're brilliant, and thank you so much for turning up. I love your questions. How are your mocks examined for the timetable submissions? Dare not touch them as they mark completing the course. Yeah, I have 25% extra time in my real exams. Okay, so just finishing this question. I dare not touch them as they mark complete. I have 25% extra time. That's good in the real exam. So be keen to know the mechanics here. Yeah, so for the mocks, what it is it's 60 minutes per section, okay, just like the real exam. We're not able on the website to actually change the time per person. It has to be done per cohort. So we're not able, we have had people in the past because we have huge numbers that are in a similar position to you, but with the assessment sets, they are not timed. So I don't need to worry about them. That's 2 out of 5. With the mocks, it's the same as the exam. But if you think about it, if you can do everything that you can do in 60 minutes, and then you have the extra 25% on top of it, it's like a bonus when you get to the exam. You know what I mean? And when you're doing question practice for the question packs, or you're doing question, we actually have bonus packs as well that we probably sent you. I'm sure we did. You can do it with a timer in front of you that reflects the 25% extra increment. So that's what I would do. But yeah, we test it just like exam conditions. Now, obviously, we're operating a website. We don't have like the same Pearson system where like you're not able to access the internet, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, that's like not possible for us. But it's an aesthetic version of the exam software. I'll put it like that. It's as close as we can get it. Although we do have the answer input at the bottom, and it's the exact same for the assessment sets as it is for the mock papers. Normally for the real world papers, you have to scroll backwards and forwards between a screen. Just logistically on the website, it was a nightmare to do that, so we have it underneath, and it's a standard text box. I hope that helps you out there. I'm struggling with the jump from MCS to SCS. Yeah, I totally get it. I struggle with the question wording sometimes. Yeah, I'm not sure what's being asked. Yeah, look, this is a big one, isn't it? Like sometimes you read through the questions and you go, "What are you actually asking me?" I mean, the first thing is read through it several times. The second thing that I would say is try to go through the past questions and review past solutions to see if there was a similar type of question that came up before. You do see repeated themes. You don't see the same questions, but you see repeated themes. And when you pick up on those themes, it does help you when you're interpreting questions that come up in the exam, because you kind of go to yourself, okay, this is what they mean by this. So, for example, if you get a question that says, evaluate the argument XYZ. Okay, well, based on past analysis of the marking grids, they mean evaluate the arguments for and against this proposal, whatever it is. Okay, so that's what I would recommend. Go through the marking grids. They're free. It'll take you an hour. Just go through like 3 or 4 sets of them. You can download them for free. And just go into the past papers, check them out, see how Cima themselves have interpreted their own questions in the past, and pick up on the trends, pick up on the main themes, and that will help in a big, big, big way. Try as well to get like practice from high quality providers. Like, I'm not going to plug anyone else, of course, but like, where questions have been written with complexity in mind, like it's easy to just answer questions on SAF. Let's be honest. Like, you want to get the questions that are horrible so that you can address them now, and you know you can get them knocked out so that when you go into the exam, and they may be familiar to you. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, there's no perfect way of doing it. Sometimes you have to like break the question apart, check the verb, but looking at past trends and seeing how they were answered by themselves, by seeing themselves, that's probably the smartest way of going about it. Which variants would we focus on? Enterprise strategy, risk management, finance strategy, or should we try to grasp all the technical knowledge? Well, you know what I would do? If you're in the course, Colin, or you have a book of mine, I would go through the book in its entirety, because what we've done is we've tried to just take all the SCS specific information out of the syllabus. Because obviously in the OT syllabus, there's like a lot of detail that isn't tested at the case level. So, for example, you won't be like calculating, hedges and that kind of stuff. You'd be tested on hedging, but that's what I would do. If you're a customer of mine, if you're not a customer of mine, what I would do is I would, if you're on the FLP, I'd go through the competencies, or go through the review course. That's another option that you have. Um, I would also, I would look at all three. I would prioritize enterprise strategy and risk management above finance strategy. If I was to say like a ratio, 35 maybe for the first two, and then whatever else then for finance strategy. But it is important that you go through them all. Keep the questions coming, guys, because, I love hearing from you, okay? Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. These are lovely. I've not sat a case study in 5 years. Don't worry about it. There are plenty of people in the same position. We have people who haven't sat case studies ever, and they get to the SCS. So you're probably ahead of those people. I mean, I just did a class there, the CGMA Career Accelerator, and we're working in that sort of capacity, and people storm through the exam. Like, it is possible, right? Like, if you've taken a hiatus, that's okay. It is fine. You can come back. That's why I created my business, to be honest. Another reason is because when I was working in other tuition providers, used to get people who would come back after like 10 years. Maybe they had a baby, and they would say, look, I'm coming back into the qualification, and I haven't been studying for like 10 years. So I was looking after my child. And you'd have to say to them, oh, go through the books. And there's like 1,500 pages. And they're looking at you going, I'm not going to do that. So that's why I created my product, so that, it would sort of help people just get stuck into the SCS specific, not like studying OT stuff that's not relevant. It is super possible though. If you've taken a 5 year gap, don't worry about it. It's okay. How do I tackle this? I would I would really invest time in question practice, as you're saying. Like, really spend a good bit of time on it. It's super important. I would go through like the highlights. Like, if you check out the crash course that's on my YouTube channel, that's a really good resource. It's like 3.5 hours long for free. Like, check it out. There's theory in there that's relevant to this specific case, and people love it. Right? Check the views. I mean, they're big. They're massive. Okay. I bought the SCS textbook. It's fantastic. Kevin, thank you so much. I love seeing that, right? I mean, who doesn't? People are so kind about my products. I just can't believe it. I see on LinkedIn today, everyone's getting the results, and people are shouting me out, and LinkedIn actually, there was so many there's so many comments on some of the stuff. I'm not able to comment. I've been restricted because I had said thanks too many times. They think I'm like a bot, right? So today's been really overwhelming for me, and thank you so much. I love the comments, really mean a lot to me. Okay. um I failed twice, 77. Advice to improve confidence. Yeah, confidence is a big one, isn't it? Right? Because look, we have people all the time, they struggle to just get stuck in, to the mocks. They're like, I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to fail. I don't want to, look stupid. I get it. Look, I'm like that myself. I don't want to look silly. Even I don't even know what the marker is. You know what I mean? I don't want to come across like I haven't a clue. I mean, who does? But what I would say is think about it differently. If you have mocks, if you have questions, if you have something there that you're maybe struggling with, you say, I just, I don't want to do it. Just think to yourself, look, this is the difference between me passing and failing. It's just getting stuck into it. You know what I mean? Change your mindset on it. I'm not a motivational coach, but just think about the fact that, like, question practice can be so effective if you are closing the book, if you are taking it like you would in the exam. It's so tough in the beginning, and you may struggle very much so at the start, but it will pay dividend because you won't be going into the exam with all these new problems. You'll have dealt with them in advance. The other thing I would say is look at LinkedIn right now and see some of the stories that people have. We have a person, they failed 7 times, not with us, but they failed 7 times. Then they bought a course with us, and then they passed. Now, 7 times, that takes a lot of willpower to go in and say, I'm going to go in again. Right? I mean, like, it takes a lot of spirit, a lot of heart to say, look, I'm going to go in and do the exam again. You know what I mean? There's people who have stories that are just incredible. I would check out other success stories. That really would get me going if I was a student, and say, look, if this person's doing this, I can do this. They're in the same country as me. They're in the same situation as me. They're in a similar, difficult situation. Like, it's not perfect. Like, people have crazy situations all the time. And that will get you going. I think that will help your confidence in a big way. See other people's success, see other people passing and getting over the line, and that will honestly help you. It brings up your spirits. I know sometimes you can look at it and go, oh, God, I wish that was me, right? But, like, try to take out of it, like, okay, well, if that person can do it, I can do it. We're in the same area, we're in the same city, we're in the same situation. Like, I can definitely do it, right? I mean, that would help. Failed first time with 77, now 69. That's tough. Hoping done better, but did not know what went wrong. Flick back over this, Amir, and check and see the 6 areas. It was one of them. Okay, so one of the 6 that we talked about here, it was one of them. Okay, so if you address those, there's a recording of this that'll be popped up on my YouTube. Please go back over them and have a check and see. Just be honest with yourself. Think to yourself, look, did I write enough detail? Did I write enough content? Did I have an answer that was, like, too generic? I know you're probably thinking back and maybe it's a blur, but as best as possible, try to think back and see, like, what did I do that Hugh's talking about here? And that's gonna be something that you need to work on the next few weeks. And if I'm being honest with you, if you still haven't a clue, get your scripts marked by someone. It doesn't have to be us, but get them marked by someone who's a professional, who can check and see, okay, this is what you're doing right and this is what you're doing wrong. And that's going to be a game changer for you. They're going to be able to, like, actually do, like, a diagnostic on what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And it's like, when you have symptoms, you go to the doctor and they say, look, you're sick, you have this. But it's the same thing with this, right? I mean, if someone is sort of saying, like, look, you're not writing enough here, you've too many paragraphs here, you're using bullet points here, like this, this is really valuable stuff. It's giving you like a prescription as to what to do, right? So that's what I would do. Nigeria. We have a lot of customers in Nigeria. It seems to be like a growing qualification in Nigeria. I see a lot of traffic coming from Nigeria these days, which is cool to see. From Lagos to Abuja, we have a lot of people on the site from Nigeria. Do we need to know the components of scenario planning or just the way it's applied? Well, if you're on our course or if you have the book, we actually have a ton of information specifically on scenario planning because it's tested a lot. These days, the way in which it's tested is actually pretty straightforward. Typically, you just need to know how to expand upon a scenario that you're given, or two or three scenarios. There have been questions in the past that say how to apply scenario, which is a scenario planning, which is different. How do we run a scenario planning exercise? That's a methodology versus exploring different scenarios that you've been given. You may be given three scenarios and you have to explore them and talk about them and what could happen and so on. So it's actually quite a wide area. It could be tested. It could be a lot, it could be a lot of different ways in which it could be tested. So yeah, I would check out if you're like short, let's say you've like tapped out, you're not going to buy anything, like even, AI, ChatGPT, check out the different ways in which scenario planning can come up. Like it's not just a case of using scenario planning, it's also like what would the scenario planning exercise reveal, how do we deal with those scenarios, like that kind of thing. I mean, try and think about it like that, and if you look at the past papers, you'll see the way in which scenario planning has been tested in the past. It's quite varied. I would look at for some polarity, if you look at KCTP, which was in November 20, February 21, scenario planning was tested a ton of times and most people did terrible in those questions. Okay, so check out that has like a load of scenario planning questions. The last set of exam papers also has scenario planning, but the questions are much easier. They just have a set of scenarios and you have to basically evaluate them. So what's going to happen, how would we respond, that kind of thing. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for listening. It gives me hope and is motivated. Well, I'm happy. I'm happy that it's motivated you. I mean, look, I'm not a motivational speaker, but I have seen a lot of people pass today. I think we had 120, 150 people in our courses. We're still trying to get, results from people. Some people are in different time zones and everything like that. But we had some really strong results. I mean, one person had 124 out of 150. We see it all the time. And I just want you to see that, see success, right? You see it, you want it. You know what I mean? That's like for me, right? I mean, you go to a nice place, I don't know, you go to Switzerland or something like that, and you go, wow, I'd love this. Kind of keeps you motivated. I don't know. That's you see it. It's a lot easier to believe it, right? Um, Thanks for this video logging off now. No problem at all. Thanks you. No problem. Interesting. A Nigerian based in the UK. Yeah, we have a lot of people. I think it's from the universities, if I'm being honest, in Lagos. I think Nile University have adopted Cima, and I think that is possibly why there's so many people now. But yeah, we see a lot of customers from Nigeria and see a lot of traffic from there. A ton of traffic from there these days. Thank you for this, Hugh. No problem at all. Okay, so guys, closing questions I see here. Do we need to write stuff from the unseen material when writing to a particular task? Yeah. So unseen material, just so everyone's aware, is the scenario. Yeah, you do. Like, I mean, that's probably going to be 90% of your application is from the scenario. Okay, so from the actual information that you haven't seen before, which is the reference materials, the background to the question, that's going to be the source of your application for the most part. The pre-scene's only going to play a small role, to be honest. It's going to be that scenario information. So the answer to your question, Amir, is yes. Very clear, yes. So any last questions, guys, or do we all want to go to bed and we all want to get thinking about this over the weekend? Like, what are we going to do? So on and so forth. Like, it's worth thinking about. If you're thinking about the February window, give it a night, give it a sleep, and see how you feel in the morning. I think that's the best thing to do, and just weigh it up, Repeating this question above, is there anything we should specifically do different from the MCS? Yeah, more heavy on the question practice for the SCS because the questions are a little bit more tricky in the way in which you answer them. There's less repetition, so you have to be prepared for a broader spectrum of questions than the MCS. The MCS is still pretty vague though, so the approach would be similar. You have to have deeper answers because you have more time. So you have 60 minutes, so you have to have a longer answer. So that's why it's important to do that question practice, because it'll be the first time where you'll be really expanding your answers out to, kind of a 5 sentence structure. Whereas with the MCS, you could probably get away with the shorter structure because of the time that you're given. And same with the OCS, they both have 45 minutes per section. So it comes down really, I'd say, deeper practice, better understanding of the industry, more understanding of the kind of the first few pages and the article pages of the pre-scene as well. So really entrench yourself in the industry within the context of the pre-scene. That's really important. Those would be sort of how I would kind of like maybe put the differences between the two in terms of the prep process there, Sally. So, is there any other questions, guys? I'm going to have my dinner. I've had one of the longest days in my life. I've been up all night with the results, waiting for them to come in, and it's been a tough day, but it has been a really nice day, to be honest. I've seen so much success online. It's amazing. I'm really happy. We had some cracking results, and look, for anyone who didn't pass, my heart goes out to you. It's really tough. It's easy for me to sit here and go, "This is what you should do." Like it's tough. You're probably annoyed or frustrated, but you got to just leave it in the past, and and focus on what you can do about it now. You know what I mean? It's kind of done. As hard as that is. Do you have any sessions planned for those sitting in February? Well, this is the main one, to be honest with you. Now, if you buy the course, there's actually a session in there called the Game Changer session that I did, which was like a one-off session. I don't know what I was thinking. It's 6 hours long, with like no breaks. Okay. I did a live session. It was 6 hours. It's not on YouTube. It's just in the course. It was like a Zoom I did. I won't be doing it live again because 6 hours is a lot, but it's in the course. Like if you have access, it's in Unit G. 6 hours of questions. From they're not even in the question pack. So yeah, I mean that was sort of the main session that I did for outside of the normal spectrum of materials that we do. But we won't be doing another YouTube one because we have, probably 5.5 hours of free content just on the YouTube there for the current window for the November February. It's applicable for both windows. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, guys. Any other last questions? And we'll cut this off. It's been an absolute joy. I love these. I absolutely love YouTube. I love the ease of like just connecting. It's nice and handy. There's no issues. I just love it. I think it's really easy. Everyone can just connect in. There's nothing like you don't have to do anything. There's no passwords or paywalls or anything like that. So, all right, I think we're pretty much good to wrap this up, guys. I want to say thanks so much for your attendance. It's late. Many of you are in South Africa. It's super late. Some of you are just waking up, actually, depending on your time zone. I want to say thank you so much. And if you are sitting the February window, irrespective of whether you see me again or not, I want to say best of luck with it. Please follow me on LinkedIn because I'm always posting free stuff. I'm always posting tips. Please like it if you can because it boosts it and other people can see it and the wider Cima community can benefit from it. We're all in this together. Like, just because I'm a tuition provider doesn't mean like, I'm invested in this. Like, I am here for everyone, whether you buy from me or not, it doesn't really matter too much. Like I want that information to be like spreading. So do add me, like it, you know what I mean? If you do like it, of course. It helps kind of spread it out to everyone else, okay? So guys, thank you so much, and we'll catch you in another session of some variety, I'm sure. It's been an absolute joy, and yeah, I'll catch you soon.